There's a very popular program of our ABC, Australian Broadcasting Corporation, in Australia here. On 2020, 24th of February, that's last night, the Q&A programs has a session about Dr. Li-Meng Leung. And I would like to put in my few words about the timeline. So let's hear what the guests at the program has said first.
And just speaking of cover up during coronavirus, I would like to give us here a timeline. So 30th December, a Chinese doctor, Li-Meng Leung, and he talked about the possibility of coronavirus in a private chat group with other doctors. He's a professional, he's a medical professional, so he knows what he's talking about. And he was taken away by the police, and he was forced to apologize, he was silenced. And 5 weeks after, this doctor passed away, and he was infected with coronavirus.
Although the first case of the coronavirus might have showed the symptoms on 1st of December 2019, we must remember that during this period, it was the peak of the influenza season in the Northern Hemisphere. Doctors are seeing a lot of patients with flu-like symptoms. So it was not until 27th of December that the doctors in one hospital recognized that there is a new case, a new type of virus causing the problem. And that problem was immediately reported to the board of that hospital. And the hospital didn't delay. They reported to the province level and eventually passed onward. Whether the information actually passed onward to the national control centers, we don't know, but at least we know that the province level disease control center was notified by 27th of December 2019. At the same time, during a routine test of viruses, one technician in a research lab in Guangdong, far away from Wuhan, detected a new type of virus from the samples they have collected. So the head of lab actually went over to the hospital which collected the sample 2 days later to discuss the issue of a new virus, a potential new virus. That was 29th of December 2019. So the Chinese government is now aware of the coronavirus, although the nature of it is still unknown, but they know there is something at hand. On 30th December 2019, Dr. Li reported passed in his web chat, in his WeChat, about potential SARS-like diseases spreading in Wuhan in his professional groups. We must remember that Dr. Li is not an influenza specialist. He is an eye doctor. Of course, he knows what's happening, but the information he had got comes from his hospital, asking the doctors to take personal care because it might have been an infectious disease happening around. We have no doubt that Dr. Li is a good doctor. He is compassionate, he cares about his work, and he shares about his information. That we don't have any doubt about his character. But let's step into the step of the disease control center. If a rumor started to circulate while the nature of that disease is still unknown, it might lead to panic in the population. And then people might feed Wuhan or Hubei. In either case, these people might be bringing this virus away from Wuhan or Hubei and spread it around the whole country or even overseas. Before a concrete conclusion can be reached, such rumors must be stopped. It is for the protection of the public, because what we might be seeing, what the result of rumors might be, is that people feeding from Wuhan and bringing the virus everywhere. Containment is the best strategy in terms of infectious disease. And at that stage, the specialists and the infectious controls experts do not know what kind of virus they are dealing with. We must put that in mind and in the right context. On 28th December 2019, more cases appears in different hospitals in Wuhan. So on the 29th December 2019, the Centers of Disease Control is notified, and now they began a search for the pathologists, trying to find out actually what is causing the problem. Now, in this, we must put in place the time. They were notified about 2 days ago, on 27th of December. On the 28th, more patients come in with similar symptoms. But just remember this, it is during the seasonal flu season. There are lots of patients coming in with similar symptoms. So they need to identify which patients is actually caused by this novel new virus and which patients were the typical seasonal influenza, and then collect samples from those maybe having the new types of virus, and then take the virus into laboratory and trying to figure out what they are. It needs time, and obviously during this time, the hospital notify all the doctors that please be careful, because we might be dealing with an unknown virus. But is that the time to alert the public that there is a new type of virus spreading, potentially very dangerous? Or it is better to wait until a definite answer is available based on facts? Then appropriate actions may be taken. During that time, any rumor will spread much faster than the virus, and any rumor may damage the future containment policy if that's needed. So the government has to silence Dr. Li. I think anybody with sufficient knowledge about infectious disease, especially the kind of virus which is unknown, will take a precautionary action. Of course, hindsight is beautiful. We, looking from hindsight, we will say, okay, why didn't the hospital notify the authorities on the 1st of December when the first patient appeared? But we must remember, this is peak season of influenza, and these patients have very similar symptoms. Let's step in the shoes of the patient. Okay, you're having a cold-like symptom. You are a little bit fever, coughing, and you want to see your doctor. Doctor said, well, we suspect you might have a new virus. Let's take some blood from you, take a swab from you, do all kind of tests. Will you be happy? If the doctor didn't know that there is a new virus, sitting around. So asking every coli patients to do that. Can you imagine the load on the laboratory and how the patients might react? But when the doctor realized that, well, we have similar cases, they look too similar, and they all come from a same place, then the doctors get alerted. And the proper channel is to collect information, collect evidence, and pass it onward. Isn't that fair? So the doctor passed it onward. Unfortunately, that was 27th of December. Quite a bit late, but hindsight is always beautiful. At that time, even on the 27th, the patient still in the hospital. He may not have recovered, and we still don't know that first person, the first patient, is actually suffering from the novel coronavirus. It was much later, when a test is available, that it is possible to identify whether that patient is caused by the new coronavirus. And initially, when we are preparing for tests, we need to identify what kind of virus this is, what is genetic or characters, and produce easy to use tests for testing it out. This kind of work needs time, needs experiment. So before anything that happens, there's a lot of work is already running at full speed behind the scene. The specialists from the central government started to descend on Wuhan. They started to collect information. But at the meantime, we don't want the population to panic. Is that right? If the population get panicked, they running everywhere. They are spreading the virus. We don't know what kind of virus it is yet. The best way is to keep quiet, like any responsible government, because panic can kill, and it kills much faster than virus in some cases. I'm totally sympathetic to the very bad situation here. Yes, by 7th of January, the central government knows that it has a big problem at hand, but they still don't know what kind of virus it is. It takes time. They were notified, let's say, on the 27th of December. So, about 10 days later, on the 7th of January, Xi Jinping, with his alert, wherever he realized that we have a difficult problem at hand. But what's the next action you should do? You tell me, what should be the next action? Do you want to lock down the whole city during the Chinese New Year? The Chinese New Year is coming very soon. People are getting back to their homeland. If the virus is not as dangerous as it is now, causing a total lockdown will have tremendous financial and social issues to look at. So the best approach is to collect information, to collect evidence, and do the research as quickly as possible. Once the conclusion is reached, then the government is kicked into action, and God, Chinese government do it very fast, isn't it? But in the meantime, there are mistakes. Hindsight, again, is beautiful. We can see some mistakes. For example, the first expert group from the central government concluded that there's not sufficient evidence to prove that this virus can transmit between people. We now know that is a wrong conclusion. But at that time, the expert come back and say that we don't have any evidence. We also don't have any evidence that the medical professionals can also get infected by contact with these patients. So that's where Dr. Lee, although he had warned his colleagues, he might have get infected earlier, before 30th December. We don't know. But unfortunately, Dr. Lee got infected and he passed away. Very sad story, but real life is like that. During the investigation, we don't want rumors running around wild. Is that understandable? Accusing the Chinese government of untransparency, I think in this case is not substantiated. The Chinese government has been doing what it can and doing it as fast as it can. You will look at what happened, for example, on Diamond Princess, or in South Korea, or in Japan. You will realize how difficult the situation actually is. Lockdown a 11 million people city is a big deal. And that lockdown includes all intercity transportations. And at the peak of the largest human migration, can you imagine the significance of that decision? That decision has to be made at the very, very top. I don't think any city mayor will be willing to make such a decision. Yes, the order was made by Xi Jinping. And next day, Wuhan lockdown. They announced it at about 3 a.m. and the lockdown started at 10 a.m. We might be, again, hindsight, saying that we shouldn't have that window. We should have locked it down at 3 a.m. and that's it. But practically, the city is not standing still waiting for you to lock it down. You need to make preparations. You need to make sure that all the important transports is not on its way. You will have arrived before you lock down. Otherwise, what do you do with all these passengers? Turn them around? I don't think so. So the Chinese government decided to lock it down, and immediately they started converting one of the hospital which has been built but yet to be delivered, a new hospital waiting to be equipped and delivered in May. They immediately in action, and within 48 hours, that hospital was converted into an infectious disease hospital. In the world, is there any other government which can do that? Yes, the building was there, but the hospital is empty. It is not yet delivered. It is supposed to be delivered in May. The Chinese government put in all the effort. 48 hours later, that becomes an operational infectious disease hospital, taking the first batch of these coronavirus patients. At the same time, they are building a temporary infectious disease hospital at two places. One is a 1,000 bed hospital. The other one, 1,600 bed hospital. They finished these two hospitals within 10 days. Again, is there any government on this earth who can do that? That's not the end of the story. Now, Wuhan's patients' numbers rising rapidly, shooting over thousands, and then 10,000, and then 77,000. Some of these patients are minor. They are not as acute, so they can be left in the normal hospital. But can you imagine the hospital suddenly increase the load to 70,000 patients? Where do you put them? You need new hospitals. But the two infectious hospital that is built is 1,000 bed, the first one, 1,600 beds, the second one. It take care about 2,600. And the one which converted take care about another 1,000. So we take care about 3,500 patients. What about the other 60,000? What do you do? What do you do if you were the government? Well, the Chinese government said, okay, for those patients who are under observation or who shows very mild case of symptoms, let's put them into a ARC. They converted conference hall, museums, large gathering space because they need cover. So they need a space where it can shelter from the cold of winter. In there, they put in rows of beds. Hardware is easy to organize, isn't it? Building a hospital, mobilize sufficient workers. But that was Chinese New Year, the largest holiday in China. How can you mobilize over 3,000 to about 7,000 workers working 24 hours around the clock to deliver new hospitals in 10 days? How do you do that? The Chinese government did it. No matter what, they did it. And at the same time, the hardware is available. We had the hospital, we had the beds. Where do you find the medical people? Where do you find sufficient nurses and doctors to arm these hospitals? Hindsight is beautiful. We should have prepared thousands of doctors on standby at any moment, isn't it? Is that possible? Is that the best use of expertise, with thousands of doctors standing by just in case there's another coronavirus spreading? No, nobody is going to do that. So what do you do? The first batch of doctors come from the military. The Liberation Army sent in all their medical staff, 4,000. 4,000 young men and women jump on a plane and fly to Wuhan to arm this hospital, to give relief to those nurses and doctors who were exhausted with a sudden increase in patients. And I will link in a little short video here to let you see how hard these nurses are. At the meantime, these nurses, knowing that they are working with an infectious disease, will need protection gear. So they put on the protection gear. But do you have millions of protection gears available a short notice. We have now 4,000 new nurses and doctors coming in. They all need protective clothing. Another 5,000 to 6,000 existing doctors within Wuhan, they also need protective clothing. Every day, they need about 20,000 protective clothing. And that's for one shift. If they work 3 shifts, it becomes 60,000 protective clothing. In stock, they last about a week and the stock is gone. So what do? Try to save your protective clothing as much as possible. So the nurse will go in, work the whole shift without drinking, eating, or going to toilet. A 4-hour shift, or maybe a 6-hour shift, before they can come out. Because when they come out, they take their mask off, that gone one protective gear. They try to save the protective gear. That's why they have to go without water, without food, without going to toilet. That is great sacrifice by all these great men and women. It is easy for us to point our fingers at the Chinese government and looking at from hindsight all the mistakes the government has done. But be fair. Look at the same situation in other developed countries. Just remember, China is a developing country. It's not a developed country. So let's look at Japan. Let's look at South Korea. How are they doing? Are they faring any better than China? WHO praised the Chinese government for its determination and the speed in handling this crisis. You and I are not infectious disease specialists, but we can understand by stepping into the shoes of the people working and fighting this disease. So instead of pointing fingers, let's unite and fight against this virus rather than fight against the people. I urge you to join hands and work forwards, eliminating this virus from the surface of the earth, while keeping in mind that hindsight is beautiful, and we will learn a lot from hindsight, and we won't make the same mistake twice. At this point in time, let's join hands and fight the virus instead of the people. Thank you.